What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and it's time for more than Richten's Guide to Ravenloft coverage. So we've kind of gotten to a point where I don't want to necessarily say winding down, but there are usually only a few things that I cover when I do these kind of coverage of stuff. So a video that will be coming up will be the monsters, sort of the bestiary of the book. There's not a ton. I think we're sitting at less than 20 monsters overall. I could be wrong, but we'll take a look at those. And then a lot of the stuff about the domains, I don't really feel like maybe I'll show off or talk about one, but that's more lore-related stuff. And I don't typically cover lore on this channel because while I am a fan of D&D lore in a variety of different aspects, there are plenty of other channels out there that cover lore. And I think several of them have already been doing Domains of Dread. I believe Mr. Rex may have. I know Jordan did. I'm not sure if AJ Pickett did any on them. But, like, there's a ton of domains. And I don't know. I don't, you know, I'd be covering it more in my perspective from a, you know, looking at, like, this is why I don't particularly like it, because I think it kind of seems rough draftish in some instances. So anyway, stuff that I'm going to do in the future, I might cover a little bit on the section on creating a Dark Lord and creating a domain, because I do think that those are interesting mechanical things that we can review. There is a section on sort of Mist Travelers or Mist Wanderers. I thought that that would be an interesting section to talk about the different groups that travel through the mists. And then basically a large chunk that I'm going to be doing now is sort of chapter 4, the horror adventures. So this will have the horror toolkit, which, as I've stated, is 100% my favorite part of the entire book. And then maybe touch high level on the adventure. I wasn't super wowed by it, but like maybe I'll just give you a quick overview. But today, I wanted to talk to you about curses, because if you recall, I made a video a while back on lycanthropy, and I had problems with lycanthropy and curses in general in 5th edition, and that's that a simple 3rd level spell, Remove Curse, which is accessible by most classes, I mean, hell, even a wizard can learn Remove Curse, just gets rid of all of the issues of a curse. Lycanthropy, a potentially very good story-driven and interesting curse that you can have afflicted, whether it's voluntary or not, and then it doesn't even get into the issues of voluntarily removing or, you know, voluntarily gaining this curse to make it a strength, and then someone just choosing to remove it because Remove Curse doesn't have a saving throw because it seemingly is just you doing it to help someone. The curses in this book are better, and it's how I would honestly, if your players are okay with it, because if your players are used to playing with this how curses are established now, they might not be a fan of it. But if they're open to it, I would recommend you go this way for all curses going forward. So let's go ahead and take a look. So it has just a little bit of background about what a curse is, but then there's this section on, you know, components of a curse. There's a little bit here about laying a curse, what causes the curse to happen. And then it's pretty much things you would imagine. Right here are some examples: defiling a sealed tomb, desecrating a temple, slaying a villain who's backed by a powerful entity, murdering or grievously harming an innocent, stealing a treasure that is meaningful to an entire culture. Standard stuff that you would imagine. Anything you've ever watched, whether it be science fiction, horror, fantasy, where someone is inflicted with a curse, it's usually because they do a thing they're not supposed to do, and that leads to the curse. So, it says, in cases where curses arise from a creature, such as a dying villain's last breath, the pronouncement's pretty clear, like, oh, I'm dying, I curse you. Okay, well, now you're cursed and you get it. It says, where there's no wronged party presented to lay the curse directly, the curse should be obvious in some way, such as a warning of dire consequences carved into a wall of an ancient crypt, or relaying a spell, something like through magic mouth, right? Beware all ye who enter here, blah, blah, blah. Watch the 1999 Mummy movie. That's a great example of curses and how to handle those. So then there are the different components of a curse. There's the pronouncement of the curse, the burden of the curse, and how you resolve it, right? The resolution of it. So the pronouncement is kind of what we just talked about. what the threat is. It promises suffering to those who dare to perform or have already performed a specific act. And it gives you some examples, right? A widely spread story explaining that a particular action tempts terrible punishment. The last words of a dying person, either a powerful villain or a wrongly slain innocent. Swearing a vow to refrain from or undertake some action on pain of great suffering, right? What is the curse? Is it, again, that beware all these are cursed, you know, death unto those who defile the temple of whoever, that kind of a thing. Then the burden. What are the impactful consequences that come from obtaining this curse, right? So this is often reflective of what caused the curse in the first place, twisting the transgressor's actions against them. For example, a character cursed with clumsiness that manifests as disadvantage on dexterity checks might not notice anything until they make such a check. Burdens can take many forms, such as the following, right? Disadvantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, or some combination of all three. This can be tied to a single ability score or just general. The victim gains 3 levels of exhaustion that can't be removed while the curse endures. That one's brutal. When the victim takes damage, it takes an extra D10 necrotic damage. The victim gains a dark gift. They gain vulnerability to a type of damage. A monster hunts them relentlessly. Even if the monster dies, it rises again, or a new one takes its place 24 hours later, and so on. One thing that I will say is this has a lot of gravity to it, these curses. The biggest thing is going to be you as the DM making sure you stay on top of not losing this. Because if it's something like disadvantage on dexterity saving throws, you need to make sure. Now, you might not want to tell the player, hey, by the way, you just apply yourself permanent disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. You might want to say, oh, hey, make a dexterity saving throw, and you're going to make it a disadvantage. And the player's going to be like, why? And you know, that kind of a thing. You got to make sure that you stay on top of it so that the curse is present. Now, depending on the scenario, it may not be the most impactful of all curses. It should be. That's the whole nature of it. But you want to make sure that it doesn't fall by the wayside, because if there's a curse like this and it slips away, the detriment and the negative side of the curse kind of, you know, it's not there. It doesn't seem threatening. So you need to make sure it's present whenever it comes up. And then the resolution, right? How do you fix it? Sometimes a curse can be ended by making restitution to the wrong party, while more general curses, and here's my favorite part here, can be lifted by a remove curse spell. More specific or dramatic curses can't be lifted through spells. Magic can temporarily offer respite, though, and this is, again, how I would handle this. A remove curse spell cast on a victim of such a curse suppresses the burden for 1 hour. A greater restoration spell suppresses the burden until they finish a long rest. Death usually ends a curse, but the curse returns in full force if the cursed character returns to life without resolving the curse. So I like that. In that case, remove curse kind of becomes like postpone or delay curse, but either way. And then they have persistent curses. When a curse is resolved, its effects usually end immediately. Some more insidious curses might linger beyond, but can then be removed by remove curse or something similar. If the victim succeeds on a DC 15 charisma saving throw when the spell is cast. If the save fails, it can be repeated after a specific interval passes, usually 1 month. Adjust the DC of particularly weak curse to 10 or a stronger one to 20. Here are some examples of curse resolutions. Protecting a loved one dear to the person who laid the curse, accomplishing a seemingly impossible task such as raising a castle above the clouds or making the sun cross the sky in a different direction. So I like the persistent curses. You resolve it, but the curse still lingers, but now it's breakable. So now you can cast remove curse to break it. I like the concept of remove curse and greater restoration delaying them, but the curse is so strong that you do the resolution, but now it just it basically unlocks it. It's now cleansable. So now you can use remove curse to get rid of it, but they still need to make a charisma saving throw. And I also like that they flat out say, like, if you fail, you might not be able to attempt to remove this curse for a month in game, which could be, again, depending on the nature of it, very impactful. And I like it. It gives it gravity. It makes it seem dangerous. And I do very much enjoy that. And then we have some sample curses as well. So we have the Ancient Seal. Carved into the stone of the crypt door, the words "Relentless death follows those who deserve the sovereign's rest." There's very much what I was telling you about beware ye who enter here. The burden. Each character that gains the curse is haunted by a wraith that appears at sunset and vanishes at dawn, pursuing the single-minded goal of slaying the cursed individual. It manifests in an occupied space within 30 feet. Destroying the wraith grants temporary reprieve. It doesn't reform for 10 days. Scale this up or down as need be. The cursed character sets right what they disturbed. Stolen treasure must be returned, and if the ruler's body was disturbed, it needs to be reinterred. That's great. And I like that they're telling you, you can obviously scale this up or down if you need be. I also like that killing it makes it not reform for 10 days, so that they may think that they're good. Like, oh, we defeated it, everything's good. And then 10 days roll around, and like they're in a dungeon or in a dire situation, and the sun goes down, and guess who's back? And then they have to deal with it. We have the broken vow, whatever the vow character made. So I vow, deity of whatever I vow to the universe, that I will do this thing forever, and then you break it. Then you get the broken vow curse. The character is plagued by restless sleep and recurring nightmares, featuring the character they swore to protect. 3 levels of exhaustion until the curse is cured. The curse lasts until the character upholds the broken oath. That might require to wait until the circumstances arise again, or more questionably, which I also like, engineer the circumstances. You're now putting someone in danger for the purposes of saving them so that you can break the curse. We only have 2 more here. Final breath. The dying creature declares to the killer, may your mind grow dim in battle until the sun sets forever. The character's disadvantage on attack rolls is brought on by brief sporadic bouts of confusion. To lift the curse, the character must cause a symbolic setting of the sun or an empowering of the night to appease the slain creature's deity. The character might prevent a festival dedicated to his sun god or perform a ritual that shrouds an entire settlement in magical night for 24 hours. I like that one a lot. I think that's very well done. And then lastly is innocent blood. The dying victim says an innocent is killed. You shall spill innocent blood until... victim spits the word, you shall spill innocent blood until laid low by the moon's bite. The character is cursed with Loop Guru Lycanthropy. The curse can't be broken until the character is reduced to 0 hit points by a silvered weapon. If they survive, the curse can be broken under the Loop Guru Lycanthropy section. Treat the character as a werewolf whose Loop Guru progenitor has been killed. More on that when we do the monsters. So I really like these. I think these are great. You can see how this could easily... it doesn't, being tropey and having tropes in your game isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? The concept of something happened and they cursed your family or cursed you to be a werewolf, that's definitely been done before in a variety of different social media, content. I'm thinking of Van Helsing, the Van Helsing movie with Hugh Jackman. I think that was the story there of how they were cursed to be the werewolf in that movie. But in all forms of content, you see this kind of thing, whether it be comic book, movies, video games. They're all really well done, the 4 provided. I like they gave us 4 uniquely distinct ones. And you could see based on that how you could very easily use this to expand on the stuff that they've given you with the examples, or use it to just create an entirely one for, wholly your own. These are great plot points. This could be an arc for a campaign, right? A dead god, a dying god, some sort of whatever, cursed a land. That could be one, right? Your whole land was cursed. And the prophecy is that at some point, some hero will arise and they'll break the curse set on the land to allow the sun to rise again, or crops to grow, or, the dead to not turn into, crazy zombie creatures. Whatever the case may be, that's a great idea for a campaign arc. It's a great, if you work with your players or your players work with you, they could have a curse built into their character if they wanted from the start, so that that's something they have to overcome. Maybe that concept of the persistent curse, maybe like they cursed the bloodline. So like the parents died and now the curse transfers to the kid who is their character, and now that's like a driving thing they want to do with their character, overcome this curse. And then they can have that as a meaningful story arc for their character, and you can build stuff around that, which is pretty cool. But not every player is going to want to undertake a permanent kind of detriment to their character for the purposes of roleplay. Some will, others may not. So, again, as you can see here, this is definitely a section, while it may be one of the shorter sections in the book, the horror toolkit, what we're going to talk about, so this is curses, next will be fear and stress, we'll do haunted traps, and then the survivor section as well. This section is amazing. I love this section of the book. I would love more of the book to seem to have the amount of detail and effort put into it as this particular section does have. I would have loved to expand this out, although I think they pretty much hit the key milestones of horror, right? Stress, fear, curses. The haunted traps are just like a bonus in my mind, and as is the survivor mechanic, was unexpected. Breakout hit in my mind. Could be a lot of fun. You want to do a Halloween one-shot, spooky theme, horror theme thing, and I'll talk more about it when we get to it. But I'm very jazzed for this section of the book. So be sure to stay tuned here to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on your notifications bell. I release these videos pretty much as soon as I film them. So, you know, if you see the release schedule is kind of funky, nothing's at the same time. It's at variety all hours of the day or night. That's because whenever I sit down and get a chance to make these videos, that's when I release them. So, you know, the only time it takes is for me to do the tagging and the descriptions and to make the thumbnails. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.